Hello, my name is Ken Hay. I'm the Chief Executive of the Centre for the Moving Image, which is the charity that runs both Filmhouse and the Edinburgh International Film Festival. Our vision is really simple. It's to transform people's lives through watching films, making films, and learning about and understanding films. I was hoping to have the chance to meet you face to face to discuss our plans for developing a new film house on Festival Square in Edinburgh. But unfortunately, lockdown and social distancing has put paid to that. So instead, we've produced a series of videos explaining who we are, what we're trying to achieve with a proposed new building, and how it might look. This is part of the formal consultation process called the pre-application consultation. It's before we submit a final planning application, and so it's very much the opportunity for you to say what you think and for us to try and explain what we're trying to achieve. We'd really like you to give us feedback. So once you watch this video, if you'd like to give feedback, I'll give you information at the end about how you can do it. Otherwise, just go straight to the Filmhouse website and you can find the link there through /future. What I'm going to do now is talk you through what we're proposing to do, and whilst I do that, I'll explain a bit more about the existing organisation and our ambitions for the future. You can see here that this is what we're proposing. This is what we'd like it to look like. A brand new building in the heart of Edinburgh, in the heart of Festival Square. But before we go into more detail of what we're looking for in the future, I want to talk you through about where we've come from as an organisation and indeed where the existing Filmhouse building has come from. So the first thing to say is that the existing building is actually an old church. It was built in the 1830s and was only converted into being Filmhouse from about 1978 through to 1985. We started off in 1978 with what is now Cinema 2, and you got to that coming down the back lane, Chucky penned, and you came in the back door. Cinema 1 opened in 1985 alongside the Café bar, and then the Cinema 3 was added in 1998. It's a beautiful building, but you'll have seen already from these images how much it's changed in that time since we took it over. You can still see the vaulted ceiling of the cinema within the old church building, and you can still see the cast iron columns within Cinema 1. But beyond that, things like the stained glass windows, if you're lucky, you can see a bit of them from one of the back windows in the offices. But beyond that, near enough everything else that you would assume was part of a church and would recognise as part of a church has gone. Having said that, it is a Grade B listed building, and that's meant that since we took it on, we've been really constrained in how we can adapt it to make it work for us and how we can make it work for you. The other thing to note on this image is obviously at the bottom of the screen, you can see the map of Lothian Road. So this is pre-Usher Hall, which is, if you look at where Grindlay Street and Cambridge Street is, in the middle on the right-hand side, that's where the Usher Hall was subsequently built. But the main feature, obviously, is the Prince Street Station and Goods Station that used to inhabit the space just to the north of where Filmhouse is. And that obviously subsequently became the Caledonian Hotel, which still remains, but all the railway lines and goods yards were removed through the late 60s and 70s. And as you can see here, there are some images of Festival Square in the past and present, or almost at the present. So first of all, in the top right of the image, you can see an aerial view of the old railway station, the goods yards, and just to the right-hand side in the centre, you could just about make out Filmhouse, and you can see the Usher Hall now in this image. Bottom left, you can see what became of the goods yards and railway lines, which was a large car park, for those of you who've got a good memory, and then the beginnings of the construction of the Sheraton Hotel. Bottom right shows you the image of the Sheraton Hotel when it opened in 1985, and then the top left shows you what Festival Square looks like now. So you've got Capitol House on one side, Sheraton straight ahead of you, and then Exchange Plaza on the right-hand side. And then this is the image overhead before Exchange Plaza was built, and you can see the beginning of what became Festival Square. The Western Approach Road at that stage was right beside the Sheraton, so it's shifted further north since Exchange Plaza was built. But again, it's useful here because you can see Filmhouse just slightly to the left of the centre of the screen on the upper side, and you can see 3 of the 4 buildings that make up Filmhouse. One of the challenges we've got is we've got 4 separate buildings that make up one building. They're all at different levels, so physically trying to get people through the building is very, very hard work. And then this is Festival Square as it now looks. This is just as the trees were being planted, but you can see that it was a large paved area. And for those of you who know Festival Square, it's never really worked as a space. We took a number of images over many years to see how much it had been used. The BBC big screen was there for a while, very rarely utilised. The number of other events are occasionally there. Spiegel Tent, for example, has been there, but they tend not to come back because it's not a well-used space. So as we look at what we're trying to achieve with the new building, we've come up with a series of design principles. We've got these because this is what we've learned over many years of what makes us different and special, but also the things that we can't do as well as we'd like to. And the first one, it seems to be the most obvious one, is that the building must provide the quality and quantity of spaces that we need as an organisation, but also that our partners need. We work with over 20 smaller film festivals each year. We host them within Filmhouse. They would love to be able to do more. We would love to be able to do more, but the existing building doesn't allow that to happen. And so we're looking at creating a space that allows us to achieve our broad ambitions for ourselves, for our partners, and critically for you as audience members, and achieve a sustainable year-round operation. And again, given the constraints we have, it's becoming increasingly difficult to deliver a sustainable business. Secondly, that our new building would absolutely focus on the core value of inclusion. And that means that it is accessible, not just physically accessible, that's crucially important, and physically accessible for everyone. So whether you're a member of staff or a member of the public coming in, that all levels must be fully accessible. We're in a situation at the moment where our offices aren't accessible. By the time you navigate your way through to Cinema 2, if you are in a wheelchair, there is a platform lift that takes you up there to a single space. There's not enough wheelchair spaces getting within the existing building. There are not enough means by which people can get safely in. What we're going to be proposing for this building is that it is fully accessible at all levels. It also needs to be accessible emotionally, and we're fully aware how much people love the existing Filmhouse. They might not love some of the seats or the inadequate toilets or the awkwardness of getting through the building, but they love its identity and its independence of spirit and its independence of programming. And those basic values are about how we make people welcome. And so as we're designing a new building, it's not to design an anonymous multiplex experience. It's very much to design a new building that takes that ethos and applies it in this space. Thirdly, it's about addressing climate emergency. We're fully aware that the existing building, partly because it's a 190-year-old church building, and the constraints that come with it, it can't deliver things in an environmentally sustainable way. And what we're looking for is this new building, even though it will be bigger and have more spaces, will be delivered in an environmentally friendly way as it can do. And this means that on glazed areas, for example, will be photovoltaic cells. It means that we'll only be using electricity sourced from verifiably renewable energy sources. And there'll be no gas, and we'll make sure that, however possible, we'll be using air-sourced air handling units. And then the final bit is they're fully aware that we're taking up some public space. Public space that, as we've just said, hasn't been used very well, but public space nonetheless. And so obviously we want to make sure that our building works in that space. We're proposing it's aligned with the front door of the Usher Hall. so that we've got an access point into the rest of the cultural quarter on Lothian Road. You've got the Lyceum, the Usher Hall, and the Traverse. And with the new Filmhouse building, you would have this strong sense that there was a greater festival square that went to the other side of the road. We're also wanting to ensure that we use this building as a catalyst for developing new activity within the square. How can we ensure that it's used by as many people as possible? So we're in discussions, obviously, with our neighbours, but a range of other partners about how we can make the square accessible for art, whether installation, performance, but also actually just for people to sit and enjoy the view. Inevitably, as part of how we try and make the whole thing work, we'll be looking at how we can have tables and chairs and teas and coffees and so on served outside on those nice days. But crucially, the square has to work for everyone. What I'm now going to do is talk through some of the plans for where we've got to with our thinking, emphasizing all the way through this is a work in progress, and we're really wanting your comments on how you think this works for you. So this first slide just demonstrates how we think that the square could be laid out, but this is, again, work in progress. Looking at a mixture of soft landscaping, which is the green stuff, harder landscaping, and crucially, we're looking at how we can ensure that there is a clear path to the rear door of the Sheraton, as well as clear access and pathways to the existing office blocks. But also making a feature of the fact that if you're looking overhead on the tower, you'll see it's an oculus shape. So this is our eye to the world, and how we can use that as a framing for the design on the square. As you come into the building, in the middle of the screen there's the front doors. You'll come into a bright, open, airy space. There'll be some tables and chairs, but the box office will be there, toilets, lifts, staircases, and so on. So it's very much the central point that allows you then to fan out through the rest of the building. You'll see the mezzanine level there, which is going to allow us potentially to have some additional cafe bar space, but will also be used as gallery space, so we can have displays of film-related content, as well as potentially working with some of our other partners in making sure that there's a display space and exhibition space in the centre of the city. And you'll also see that in the middle of the image there's a staircase, and that's the main staircase that will take you down to the cafe bar. As I go up and down the building, you'll see that they're highlighted in a sort of salmon pink colour where we are at any moment in time. So we've just been looking at the ground floor and the mezzanine, and then we're going to be going further down in just a second. So potential layout is you're coming in, you've got the staircase, you've got the box office there. You'll see at the rear of the building, and this gets repeated inevitably on every level, is you've got core access points and core exit points. So there'll be 2 large passenger lifts, as well as a third lift that will be more programmable to allow access to upper levels and lower levels at key points of the day. 2 main fire escapes, including the rear one, which runs the full height of the building. You'll also notice that there's a pale blue around the edge of the building at the ground floor level. And that is a light well that's going to be taking daylight through to the lower 2 levels, which is the cafe bar and then the cinema concourse. So we're now going to go down to the cafe bar. Thing to point out is that's purely indicative seating arrangement. It won't be the way the seats are. It's just to show how many seats we might be able to get in. Other key thing to note here is the green space at the top of the screen. And this is one of 2 large education and learning spaces that we're developing for the building. One of the things we haven't been able to do with the existing building is how we have all the fantastic education work we're involved with on site. Equally, there are a lot of other partner organisations like Screen Education Edinburgh, some of the other film festivals I was talking about, who'd love to do more work in this area, as well as national film education organisations, people like Screen Academy Scotland and Into Film, who would like this kind of space to be available. We currently can't provide that. this then becomes one of the key hub points for the whole building. And as I take you down to level -2, this takes you to the main cinema concourse. Before I move to the cinemas, you'll see the second green area is at the front of the building. So this is at the Lothian Road end of the building, and this is the second education space. But the other spaces here are all cinemas. And you might be wondering why we need 6 cinema screens when we have 3, and a lot of the time they're not full. The nature of cinema is that we have a lot of screenings through the day, and it means that at a weekend, for example, Friday and Saturday evenings, the cinemas will be very, very busy. Wednesday lunchtime will be much quieter. So depending when you come to Filmhouse, you might get a sense of why do we need more seats when the existing seats are empty. It's dealing with the peak times and how we can ensure we can service more of the peak time. But secondly, it's because with all the partners we work with and we want to work with more, they're very keen to show more films, often at the same time as we're trying to show films as Filmhouse. And there has to be a compromise, and it's always a very good compromise between ourselves and our partners. But the problem is something has to give, and the thing that gives is the number of films we can show at any moment in time. What we have here is a proposal also that we've got more varied spaces. Currently, Cinema 1 is 280 seats, Cinema 2 is 100, and Cinema 3 is 74 in the existing building. We're proposing a much more varied number of seats across the cinema screens here, which again makes it easier for us to work with our partners as well as for ourselves to have a range of films in screen sizes that are appropriate to that film. And then the final element of the cinema design is that the Cinema 3, which is at the bottom right-hand corner, is going to be a flat-floored space with retractable seating. And the reason for that is an awful lot of the work we do is in the more experimental end of film and filmmaking, and indeed it's into art. It's into visual art, artist film and video, and this space will be used as a black box space. We can show films, absolutely, but it will be able to be used for all kinds of other purposes. The other reason it's there is an awful lot of people who use our space really struggle with steps and staircases and rake seats and so on. And so this potentially provides an opportunity to have a much more relaxed screening space where the projection quality will be as good, the sound quality will be as good, but it's just that it means we can use softer seats, bean bags, whatever, in a black box environment. Thing to note in terms of access is that all the screens will be accessed either at the rear or in the middle of the screen. Currently, on the whole, you come in at the rear of Cinema 3, the rear of Cinema 2, and the middle of Cinema 1. But then there isn't an aisleway in the middle of Cinema 1 that allows you easy access backwards and forwards. In this situation, everyone, whether able-bodied or mobility constrained, will be able to come in at the rear of the screen and pick a seat or pick a space that works for them. We'll have an awful lot more space that is suitable for wheelchairs and wheelchair users and their carers if they need them. As I go down to level -3, this is going down a long way, you'll see that we've got the bottom ends of the cinemas down to that level. And this also means that each of the cinemas, we will also be able to have access for disabled users at the front of the screens. One of the things we've noted going around visiting other cinemas is it's very rarely the case that you've got easy access to the front of the screen for people who have mobility issues in wheelchairs and so on. We're also aware that an awful lot of people who might make films might have mobility issues, and you have a bizarre situation where somebody might be trying to introduce a film, but they can't because they can't physically get to the front of the screen. We're dealing with that through this approach. And it therefore means that at all levels for the cinemas, each level is fully accessible for anybody. The point I didn't highlight earlier is that the projection boxes also can be accessed by anyone, whatever their mobility constraints. And that also is quite unusual because even in very modern cinemas, on the whole, projection boxes are up a flight of steps. Second thing to point out here is that the blue area in the middle are the kitchens. Kitchens and storage take up a lot of space. We're looking at servicing probably about twice as much in terms of food and beverage operations through the whole building. And this is well over twice the amount of space. In fact, it's probably about 3 times the amount of space we currently have. And it means that we'll be able to offer a range of food and drink throughout the entire building, depending on what people want or need at a certain moment in time. I'm now going to go up into the middle of the building. You'll see that this is the level above the entrance foyer. And this is our festival centre. And the festival centre is for film festivals primarily. Yes, Edinburgh International Film Festival, that's part of who we are, but it's also for all the other film festivals that we work with. As I say, over 20 other film festivals we work with each year, and we'd love to have more. One of the key questions they have is they would love to do conferences, events, seminars, workshops, masterclasses, special screenings, and so on, and there isn't a space to do that in the existing Filmhouse building. This will provide that space for us and for our partners. And as you can see, the intention is it will have a large window looking out over the Usher Hall up to the castle. So in itself, it becomes an iconic space for people to visit and to experience just in itself, as well as be inspired by whatever is being discussed at the time. Again, what we're looking at is a combination of fixed seating and retractable seating. And it will be an auditorium with up to about 200 seats in it, and then there'll be an additional flat floor space behind it that will allow us to do more traditional workshops and events like that. We're then going further up the building to 2 floors of offices. And you might wonder why on earth we need 2 floors of offices. Well, as Filmhouse, we don't, but as Filmhouse and Film Festival, we need about 1 1/3 of these floors at peak times. We ratchet up, we employ a lot of temporary staff in the lead up to the film festival each year, and we don't have enough space to house everyone at this moment in time, so we're always having to rent additional spaces and cramming people into inadequate spaces. This provides enough space for us. But secondly, and this is where the bit about the building not just being about showing film, or indeed learning about film, this is about making. This is about the curation of film and making films from the production side. And what we're looking for is this big building becomes a hub for the whole of the film and screen industries. So there'll be space here available for, whether it's a production company, film festivals, film education organisations, to rent short-term and long-term, all contributing to the sense that this building is a community of film. So whoever you bump into, whether it's a filmmaker, whether it's somebody working in the organisation itself, someone behind the cafe bar, someone visiting, you will all have a connection to film. And then the last 2 levels, we've got an upper level restaurant. One of the things we have with Filmhouse at the moment is we've got fantastic chefs, we've got fantastic food offering, and a quite inadequate physical space to serve that in. We've seen repeatedly great demand from people to have nice eating environment, and we really struggle to provide that. So what we're proposing here is a way of separating the 2. So we have the cafe bar at level -1, and we then have the restaurant at this upper level. And it then means that we can utilize the profits that we'll be generating from the restaurant to underpin the cultural activity that we're wanting to do in the rest of the building. And then lastly, this is a rooftop event space. It'll be a mixture of bar, cinema screen, but also just public access. The views from here will be amazing, and we're really keen to make this as accessible as it can be for free, so you don't have to buy a drink or a cup of coffee at key points through the day and through the week. But equally, it's a space that we really want to utilize as an interesting space. So for example, through film festivals and other film festivals that we host, there's always a need for reception spaces. This can be a reception space. It will have a canopy over it, so you don't have to worry quite as much about the somewhat unpredictable Scottish weather. But we're also looking at what else we can use the space for and how far we can have regular screening events there and other events very much designed to be accessible to as wide a range of people as possible. So that's a bit about who we are at the moment and where we're trying to get to. You might ask the question, why don't we just fix the existing building? Well, the existing building, as I said earlier, is a converted church with lots of add-on buildings in between times. One simple example I can give is around toilets. We don't have enough toilets, and the toilets we do have are very cramped. Because of the constraints, just the physical footprint constraints of the existing building, the only way we could increase the number of toilets and increase the space for toilets is eating into other space. So we could provide really nice toilets at level 1 in the existing film house, off the 2 doors of Cinema 1. But the only space we can go to is eating into the cinema space. The only space we can go to on the ground floor level is going into the foyer space or the cafe bar space. And by eating into the foyer space and indeed the corridor space and the cafe bar space, in all these situations going, well, we still need a corridor. And one of the bits of the business that generates enough revenue that subsidizes the cultural offering is the cafe bar. So why would we want to have less space in the cafe bar? And the example in Cinema 1, both from having increased size of toilets and indeed re-raking the seats to make them more comfortable, proper legroom, proper bottom room, we would reduce the capacity from about 280 seats down to, if we kept the toilets as they are, it would take it down to about 170. And if we increase the size of the toilets, we'd take the capacity in the cinema down to about 150. So we're heading towards half the capacity of the existing screen just to make the seats more comfortable and just to make the toilets more comfortable. Both things we think are really important, but at the same time, it means we can make less money and service fewer people in allowing them to see film. I've got a lot of other examples of how trying to fix one thing has a whole series of unintended consequences elsewhere. Why this site? We've looked at other sites. We've looked at sites at the top of Leith Walk, at Fountain Bridge, Potter Row. We even asked the question of the planners whether they'd let us redevelop the entire existing site. And all of those, for one reason or another, weren't possible. And so after many years of discussions, we feel that actually the best place is on Festival Square on Lothian Road, because it gives us scope to develop the building we need, provide the space we need in a way that services all of our requirements. But crucially, this is about the people of Edinburgh. Filmhouse is used predominantly by the people of Edinburgh, and actually the film festival is used predominantly by the people of Edinburgh. And Lothian Road is brilliant because it is fully accessible. It's part of the cultural quarter. It's part of the broader cultural quarter that includes the Cameo, the Odeon, Cineworld, the King's Theatre, the Conference Centre, as well as the Traverse Lyceum and Usher Hall. We think this is the ideal solution, but we want you to say what you think. We launched the public consultation on the 11th of March. We closed the Filmhouse building a week later because of coronavirus, and a few days after that, lockdown was formally introduced. We're not going to be able to reopen Filmhouse for a number of weeks into the future. So this is your opportunity to comment, but through the website. We've got a lot of information on the website. We're very happy to have conversations with you if you'd like to discuss them. Flagging up that the deadline was originally due to be the 3rd of June for consultations, but has been extended to the 12th of July. And if you're wanting to make comments, you can do so at www.filmhousecinema.com/future. We think this is great, but we want to know what you think. So let's hear what you have to say. Thank you.